Part 101. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1003. The two of them were walking hard at this time, and both of them had a lot of sweat on their bodies. In a place like this, Baiyu, who was soaked all over, actually had the temptation of a mature charm. They were still chatting, but now there were not many people who could surpass them. They saw that there was still at least half the road ahead, and in fact they had almost no hope. Among our generation of 100 years, Baimu is considered the most outstanding. He can be the most outstanding of our bright dragon clan within 1,000 years. Huasuandeo. Muyu's fortune is inseparable from the training of Longzun and his father. Of course, his own efforts and talents are worthy of praise. Baiyu looked forward. The young man has now reached a very deep position. He has already it is the absolute first, completely unsurpassed. He got the battle secret. If the war god king really wants to leave a legacy, he must be summoning him. There is actually no suspense this time. We are just playing with him. He is outstanding enough in his own right, plus the war god king's inheritance. If so, I estimate that in this generation within 100 years, he can represent our bright dragon clan and win a certain status among the entire Holy Dragon clan. The Holy Dragon clan is too big. If he does his best, he will definitely shine in the entire Holy Dragon clan in the future. Baiyu seemed to be full of confidence in him. Just when she got here, there was sudden movement behind her, and then two teenagers appeared beside them and passed them. Sister Yu Zhangzai said hello when he met an acquaintance who owed him a favor. You guys, Baiyu looked at them in shock, unable to recover for a long time. You actually got to this position, Huaxian said in shock. It's a fluke, Zhangzai said in a low voice. That's amazing. Huaxian smiled bitterly and said, seeing you, I can only say, the Dragon God King is really amazing. Only then did Baiyu react and said, am I really right? What did you rely on to get here? Your realm is not high, and your divine body is not strong. She still couldn't believe it. Lucky, Zhangzai said. Then they stared together. The atmosphere was awkward, and Zhangzai could only say, Sister Yu, let's go first. Obviously, they still have a long way to go, and Baiyu and Huaxian have almost reached their limit. Yes, Baiyu nodded, still not recovering, and Zhangzai said goodbye to them. The two turned around and walked away in front of them, almost as fast as Baimu. Is it possible for you, these two incredible guys, to pose a certain challenge to Baimu? Huaxian asked. Baiyu pondered for a long time and said, they are really incredible. They are definitely a surprise dark horse. So what? I still feel that from the inheritance of battle tactics to the summons of the dragon's roar, the god of war must have a deep meaning, Baiyu said. That makes sense, Huaxian nodded. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. In fact, being surpassed like this made him feel a little uncomfortable. However, those who were still inside were gritting their teeth and persisting. However, no matter how hard you grit your teeth and persevere, there is still someone who will be eliminated. The channel will not let those who are stagnant stay for too long. So many people went directly outside to watch. Baiyu and Huaxian were almost the last batch of people to be eliminated. In fact, they heard a lot of exclamations outside and wanted to go out and see what was happening at the front of the passage. After coming out, Baiyu found a group of friends. She saw Xuanhuan and Longyan standing aside, but she didn't see Zhangzai and Lu Dingxin yet, so she knew the two teenagers should still be inside. When I came outside, I found that more than 95% of the people had already come out. Among the 5%, there were still many who had just arrived here and were still in the front section of the passage not long after entering. When she looked behind her, she found that there were not many people in the middle of the passage, and those who were still inside were mostly struggling. At the front of the passage, there are several young people close to the age of 40 who are at the 9th level of the ancient god realm. They are moving forward with difficulty. Looking further ahead, there is a figure in white in the distant depths. That should be Bai Mu. Seeing that Bai Mu was still at the front and ahead of the others, Bai Yu breathed a sigh of relief. She knew immediately the reason for the exclaim. Because she also saw that the two young men Zhang Zizai and Lu Dingxing were surpassing the 9th level of the ancient god realm. They still maintained a good forward speed, and every time they surpassed the 9th level of the ancient god realm, people outside would scream in surprise. Still not coming out. What did they eat to be so exaggerated? How can it be possible for someone who is only at the 3rd level of the ancient god realm to reach this position? It's absolutely impossible. Zhang Zizai, Lu Dingxing, these two people from the divine realm, do they have something on them that allows them to walk so far in the passage? Bai Yu actually knew Zhang Zizai's name. When she came out, she found that these two teenagers were completely famous, and almost everyone present knew them. Moreover, the news that Long Yan has divine potential and the bloodline of the Supreme Divine Dragon has spread, and now the four of them are the focus of people's discussion. Especially Long Yan and Zhang Zizai. Bai Yu was a little confused. He found that Bai Mu at the front did not attract much attention. After all, people thought it was normal for him to take such a front position, and most of them didn't think there would be any suspense about him receiving the inheritance. People were just shocked by the incredible pioneering work of Zhang Zizai and the others. You guys, they won't be second only to Bai Mu, right? Based on the current situation, it is very likely. How do these two people have such ability? Their combat power and talent are not that great, but the distance and speed they are moving forward are simply incredible. I can't figure it out. I always feel that they don't seem to be entering the same passage as us. Do you think it is possible for them to surpass Bai Mu? That's impossible. Bai Mu has gone a long way, and he obviously has the strength to continue moving forward. The most important thing is that he has practiced the battle tactics of the god of war. He has been selected. That's right, but I don't know how long Zhang Zizai and Lu Dingxing can hold on. With an exclamation, Zhang Zizai and his team have surpassed a 9th level ancient god who is second only to Bai Mu. That was a white-haired young man. When they saw Zhang Zizai and his team quickly passing by, they were confused for a moment because of the unbelievable mood. Almost at the same moment, they were swept away. Now, in the distance in front of Zhang Zizai and his team, there is only Bai Mu. He and Lu Dingxing looked at each other. In fact, they had already walked through 3/4 of the passage, and Bai Mu was already close to the dragon tomb. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1004. In this position, they already feel terrible pressure. They have to move forward under pressure at all times. They can no longer relax as before. However, Zhang Zizai is better than Lu Dingxing. His holy dragon body is very suitable for moving forward in this place, so when Lu Dingxing is still slow, Zhang Zizai is actually fine. He was not in a hurry and moved forward with Lu Dingxing. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. He knew that the competition between him and Bai Mu should have become suspense at this time, and people outside should be waiting. It's time for the final push. Boss, let's compare, Lu Dingxing said. Afraid of you. Walk. At this time, both of them had a desire to fight. In fact, they were playing like this back then, but now they just changed places. After arousing their fighting spirit, just when people thought they had reached their limit, they did something incredible. That's the chase. The target they were chasing was, of course, Bai Mu. Bai Mu seemed to be close to arriving at the dragon tomb. Originally, people wouldn't think there would be any suspense. After all, Bai Mu seemed to have caught all this by surprise. However, the situation changed at this time. Bai Mu was so far away that he could no longer hear him. Amidst the exclamations outside, Zhang Zizai and Lu Dingxing were chasing after them quickly. Bai Mu must have slowed down because he was in such a difficult position. Hard to imagine. Everyone has a chance, and he is naturally worried. If he is careless and gets swept out, he will completely lose hope. Amid people's exclamations, Zhang Zizai and the others got closer and closer to Bai Mu. But Bai Mu was completely unaware of all this, otherwise, he might have been faster. Are they competing? Are you going to catch up with Bai Mu? Mine. Now the people outside were almost suffocated, their faces were completely stiff, and they were speechless at all. Then they saw that Zhang Ziyi was leading the way, leading Lu Dingxing. Bai Mu was 10 feet away in front of him. If he turned around, he could already see Zhang Ziyi. In fact, Zhang Zizai knew in his heart that his holy dragon body might be more suitable for moving forward in this passage than Bai Mu's battle tactics. In fact, the pressure he felt so far was extremely heavy. He knew exactly who the dragon tomb really summoned. He gradually approached, and there were already some sounds. At this time, Bai Mu finally heard the movement behind him. At this moment, he suddenly turned around and saw Zhang Zizai, who was catching up quickly. Brother Bai, Zhang Zizai greeted with a smile. Bai Mu stood on the spot. His body trembled and he was almost swept away. During this period, his expression changed many times and even twisted a little. Finally he relaxed. Zhang Zizai knew clearly that it would be helpful for him to appear here. What a shock! Sorry, this should be fair competition, right? Zhang Zizai said. After all, he still owed a favor, so he still had to take care of his emotions. Yes, Bai Mu waited for a long time before slowly nodding. At this time, Zhang Zizai had already walked to his side. Not only that, he also saw Lu Dingxing. Lu Dingxing was sweating profusely, but he was still gritting his teeth and moving forward. He looked more tired than Bai Mu, but he was faster than Bai Mu. After all, he was not so afraid of being swept away, so he pursued Zhang Zizai in a risky way. How did you get here? Bai Mu paused for a long time before asking. It can be seen that his mood fluctuated greatly during this period. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to be difficult, so it's a bit weird. Zhang Zizai is still not well for the time being. He has obtained the holy dragon body. Interesting. Bai Mu Wan'er smiled and said, it just so happens that I don't have any opponents. You have to be right and we can compete fairly. Let's compete together. Thank you. He didn't seem to feel bad, so Zhang Zizai smiled. After all, he had helped many times, and now he felt as if he was robbing him of his fortune, and he felt a little embarrassed. After asking for a test, Zhang Zizai said, the one at the back is also competing with me. Let's compete together. I'll start. After that, he started to move forward quickly, faster than he could catch up before, and directly surpassed Bai Mu. Bai Mu's face darkened, and he quickly followed. The two of them were on a horizontal line, speeding up, as if the dragon's tomb was right in front of them. In fact, there was already a commotion outside. Caught up. Ah, I actually caught up. He's talking to Bai Mu. Where are they? Bai Mu looks okay. After all, he still has confidence in himself. They're all starting to leave. It seems like they're competing. The two of them are going at the same time. Is there really any suspense? No way. There is no battle strategy. Zhang Zizai is obviously not chosen by the god of War King. Even if he is fast, I guess he won't be able to get out of the passage and reach the dragon tomb. That's it? That's true, but in fact, the final result is still full of suspense for everyone. They saw that the two people were walking together, completely throwing away Lu Dingxing. However, this situation only lasted for 10 breaths. After 10 breaths, Zhang Zizai still maintained the original speed, while Bai Mu lowered his head, his face was pale, sweating, and his whole body was shaking. Everyone knew what kind of pressure he was facing. What people saw was that his speed actually slowed down, and the speed of his body shaking accelerated. Suddenly, he let out an unwilling roar. Maybe the speed was too fast and exceeded the limit he could bear. Something that people never expected happened. Baimu was actually swept out. Everyone was stunned. This result was beyond everyone's expectations. No one could have expected this ending, so this scene made the scene stagnant for a while, and everyone fell into a dead silence. And people saw that Zhang Zizai was still moving forward steadily, and even Lu Dingxing behind him had surpassed Baimu's position and continued to move forward. After Baimu was swept away, he returned here with an expressionless face. Everyone looked back at him, their expressions were still dull, and no one spoke. When they looked at Baimu and then at Zhang Zizai who was still inside, they suddenly found that Zhang Zizai had walked through the entire passage. When he walked out of the passage and arrived in front of the dragon tomb, the passage suddenly disappeared, and everyone inside, including Lu Dingxing, was swept away. Everything was over. People continued to look at him dully. Zhang Zizai stood in front of the dragon tomb. Suddenly, a huge dragon coiled in front of him. What did this mean? Everyone knew that it was a copy of the god of war. In an instant, it became even more dead silent. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1005. At this moment, Zhang Zizai no longer knew what the expressions and moods of so many people outside would be like when they saw Baimu being eliminated, but he was now in this position. He knew that Baimu was bound to win the inheritance, so he must be very disappointed. After all, it was Zhang Zizai who finally came here, a competitor that he had never expected. As for Zhang Zizai, he had already figured it out. Although he owed the other party a lot of favors, even if he didn't fight for the inheritance in front of him and gave it to Baimu, he still wouldn't get it. He wasn't eliminated because of Zhang Zizai's appearance, but he was destined not to reach the end. Because the War God King chose Zhang Zizai from the very beginning. At this moment, he had no distracting thoughts and was shocked. He was facing the magical thing in front of him. It was a huge dragon flying in the dragon tomb. This dragon was covered in golden light. He was more transformed than the god King Tianyang. The body of the divine dragon is several times larger, and at the same time, its divine power is also more majestic. However, this is just a light and shadow. He is not a real entity, but a change of soul. In other words, this is a kind of inheritance of the God King. After his death, he did not choose to be reincarnated, but instead used his own creation. It condensed into a heritage and is preserved to this day. The appearance of this light and shadow dragon is the totem beast of the original Zhantian God King. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. According to the records, the totem beast of the War God King is named Great Creation Kangtian Fighting Dragon. This is a top-level dragon born for fighting. It is a totem of the God King level. It is said that it is only one step away from the highest God totem. Remote. This is why the name Zhantian God King came from this. Zhang Zizai was alone, standing in front of the great fortune battle dragon. The huge golden dragon coiled in several circles, condescending. At this moment, Zhang Zizai could feel his majestic fighting will. This fighting spirit directly impacted the soul. People can clearly feel the terrifying spiritual power revealed by this dragon. This is the dragon of struggle. It is full of restless and violent aura, and it is an unconquerable will that would rather die than surrender. In the eyes of this divine dragon, one can see the momentum of thousands of troops and horses still marching forward bravely, and the heaven, earth, and universe cannot stop its determination to defy the will of heaven and earth. Maybe those people outside were also shocked when they saw this great creation fighting the dragon in the sky. This was once the dragon they worshipped. You are destined to pass on my mantle, serve the holy dragon celestial clan, pursue the position of God, and live forever. The great creation heaven Do Zhan Shenlong actually spoke, and his voice was thick and broad, spreading throughout half of the bright dragon tomb. When he said these words, it could completely prove two things. First, he is the God King of War, and second, today, he is going to give his God King inheritance to Zhang Zizai. An unknown guy arrived from the small god realm, and his realm and talent were not very outstanding. Before this, no one would have guessed that such a person would receive the Zhantian inheritance. But now, even if the real God King appears now, it will not change the process of inheritance, unless the War Sky God King himself goes back on his word. However, the War God King has passed away long ago, and what is left now is just the test he had reserved. Since Zhang Zizai has passed the test, how can there be any possibility of going back on his word? After the huge dragon said the first sentence, he said nothing else. Thank you, Senior War God King. The younger generation has your inheritance. You should serve the Holy Dragon Celestial Clan and pursue the way of the gods. Zhang Zizai's spiritual will was now bound to the great creation of the heavenly fighting dragon, the god of war. At this moment, the inheritance began, just like when he accepted the inheritance from the god of death. Zhang Zizai didn't need to do anything at all, the inheritance from the War God King would be integrated into his soul. The soul that was still immortal at the beginning can directly transform into a demigod soul. The demigod soul inherited by the killing god played a huge role in Zhang Zizai's ability to survive the Tianyi soul tribulation. If he had not had a demi-divine soul at that time, he might have died during the Tianyi soul tribulation. Hit. The first benefit of this kind of inheritance is that it can definitely strengthen the soul to a great extent. Lu Dingxing's soul has not practiced anything, it is completely strengthened by receiving inheritance. The strengthening of the God King's inheritance is definitely comparable to the Taixu universe soul refining technique that has been practiced for a long time. And to be precise, the Taixu universe soul refining technique makes the soul more solid, and this strengthening of the soul is equivalent to increasing the volume of Zhang Zizai's soul. It is a quantitative increase. After the increase, it is ground and refined by the millstone of heaven and earth. The future potential will be even greater. Inheritance is actually the change of the divine soul. In comparison, the divine soul is more like the foundation of the ancient God than the divine body. Because in comparison, if the world is just an ocean, then the divine body is equivalent to a ship in the ocean, and the people on the ship are the divine souls. People must have a boat to exist in the sea. If the ship has been destroyed, then the soul itself will not die, but it will drown in the sea, so it can either choose to be reincarnated with a very low probability, or choose to transform into another state and become a legacy to stay in this sea. Until one day, when a descendant came in a boat, he merged with the people on the boat to make the descendants stronger. Now, everyone is watching with their own eyes the light and shadow of the great fortune-fighting dragon, starting from the dragon's head and crashing into Zhang Zizai's head. The scene at this moment is absolutely shocking and stunning, enough to be remembered for a long time. It's time. Inside Zhang Zizai's body, the Tianyi soul began to absorb the power of inheritance and grow vigorously. It can be imagined that the soul of the Zhantian God King was many times stronger than his Tianyi soul. There was definitely a difference of 10,000 times. It was just that after a long time, it was no longer a soul after being transformed into inheritance. This kind of inheritance cannot allow Zhang Zizai to have a soul as powerful as the God King immediately, but it can escort and guide a clear path to assist Zhang Zizai in creating his own God King soul. This requires a certain process, but with the inheritance, this process will become much easier. At that time, the God King soul that was achieved will only belong to Zhang Zizai himself, and there will not be many marks of the Zhantian God King in it. Inheritance is a great dedication and is definitely a great act worthy of praise. About half an hour later, Zhang Zizai's soul was growing. Not only was its size growing, but its nature was also changing. In the changes of the soul, there were some other creations. After the inheritance gradually merged into Zhang Zizai's soul, they began to appear. The first change is the substantial strengthening of Tianyi's soul, which will make Zhang Zizai's soul attacks such as the Ghost Dance Demon Sword and the Phantom Demon Soul Calming Sword Manual even more terrifying. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1006. The second change is that his soul is covered with a golden light. This is an important part of the inheritance of the God King Zhan Tian. This is something that only the God King inheritance can have. This is a transfer of the spiritual willpower of the God King, which, on the basis of strengthening Zhang Zizai's soul, allows him to have the will oppression of the God King level. In short, in the future, Zhang Zizai may feel the spiritual oppression from a similar God King in battle, a kind of will oppression that can defeat the enemy without fighting. In the inheritance, this kind of will inheritance from the God King Zhan Tian is called, Immortals Zhan Tian will. The God King Zhan Tian is an extremely terrifying God King in terms of God King will. His Immortal Zhan Tian will is the oppression that Zhang Zizai felt at the beginning. It is a fanatical fighting will, violent and impactful, which can form a strong mental oppression on the enemy. And now this Immortal Zhan Tian will has been transferred to Zhang Zizai's soul. Of course, there are many details in the inheritance. Each inheritor may not leave much. In fact, the most fundamental ones are hidden in the soul, which will help Zhang Zizai in the long-term cultivation. The strengthening of the soul, the inheritance of the immortal will of Zhan Tian, and the inheritance of the skills and battle tactics are actually visible appearances. There are many invisible ones that actually have a more far-reaching impact. In terms of skills, Zhang Zizai himself has the dragon whale swallowing sea tactics of the Yuanqi Shenlong Sutra, so he did not pay attention to it. However, in terms of battle tactics, the battle tactics inheritance left by Zhan Tian Xuanhuan all started at the God King level. He must have left many God King level battle tactics, but Zhang Zizai's current realm is not enough and it is difficult to know. However, as long as he has enough strength, the inheritance integrated into the soul will definitely appear on his own. The benefits of inheritance are huge, and its hidden benefits, for example, Zhang Zizai himself finds it difficult to practice the battle tactics above the God King level, and even if he succeeds in practicing, it will not work. However, after accepting the inheritance, he can try to the greatest extent and have a certain possibility of success. Zhang Zizai has already locked on 2 battle tactics. He is thinking that he may be able to practice successfully in the future. The inheritance makes him and the things left by the god of war have a certain attribute nature fit. In addition to the battle tactics, there may be totem magic weapons. In the second half of the inheritance, Zhang Zizai has actually felt the call from the totem magic weapon. What will the totem magic weapon left by the god of war be? At the first moment after the inheritance, Zhang Zizai opened his eyes and saw a totem magic weapon inserted on the ground in front of him. When he saw the totem magic weapon for the first time, his eyes lit up directly, and his mood was particularly excited and shocked. This totem magic weapon was quite extraordinary at first glance. Even at the first contact, even if he had the immortal will of war heaven, he was suppressed at this time. In fact, it may be because the years are too long, so this weapon is a little rusty, and even has some damage and dust, but even so, it is difficult to cover up the domineering and coercive power of this totem magic weapon. This is a dark gold halberd, with a spear tip and 2 curved blades, and the rest of the parts are covered with golden dragon scales. There is also a spear tip at the tail, which is the 4th blade of this halberd. This golden halberd is like a 3-headed dragon, and the spear tip at the tail is like a dragon tail full of penetrating power. Zhang Zizai doesn't need to ask, the inheritance will tell him what kind of weapon this is. This is actually the magic weapon used by the God King Zhan Tian when he was the strongest. This is the God King's combat weapon. Zhang Zizai knows that the glory of this weapon in the past was not even comparable to the Wangchuan sword. After all, although the Wangchuan sword is also a God King level magic weapon, it can't reach this level. Of course, it is not glorious now. Maybe it's a long time, or maybe it has suffered a heavy blow. Now this golden halberd is probably not as powerful as any God King's magic weapon. It is estimated to be about the same as the God King level weapon. But Zhang Zizai knew that as the former supreme existence among the totem divine weapons, one day, he would be able to burst out his former glory. Its name is called the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd. This was the divine weapon that the God King Xuanhuan used to conquer the dragon sacrifice divine domain. It once established a great reputation. Its legend has always been tied to the God King Xuanhuan. The golden divine weapon that was shining brightly at the time is now left alone in this place. It is indeed time to restore its glory. No one can get the recognition of the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd, except Zhang Zizai, who has inherited the inheritance of the God King Xuanhuan. Zhang Zizai can see all the pictures about the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd. In the picture, the God King Xuanhuan holds the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd and kills all the opponents. His opponents include the God Kings from other top divine domains, some terrible divine beasts, and even some strange monsters. No matter what the opponent is, the God King Xuanhuan is very terrible. Wherever the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd goes, it can be said to be invincible. As soon as the Divine Halberd was out, 3,000 dragon sacrifices accepted the order and were invincible. In fact, don't be fooled by the magnificent appearance of this weapon, it is actually a fierce divine weapon. The core of the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd lies in the totem pattern on it, which constitutes the 3,000 dragon sacrifice divine formation. The so-called dragon sacrifice is the dragon sacrificed, which is the soul of the ancient dragon totem god above the god lord, at least more than 3,000, all of which have been transformed by special means and imprisoned in this divine weapon as part of the divine weapon totem formation. Of course, all the ancient gods above 3,000 were killed, and their souls were completely eradicated of their own traces, becoming completely blank souls, transformed and used by the 3,000 dragon sacrifice arrays, becoming the sacrifice dragons in them. Some more ferocious divine weapons retain the memory and thinking ability of the souls in order to make the weapons more powerful, and imprison them in divine weapons, which is torture. In terms of humanity, the 3,000 dragon sacrifice arrays are better. The history of this weapon is older than that of the god of war. The sacrifice dragons on it are transformed from the souls of the ancient dragon totem gods in ancient times. The 3,000 dragon sacrifice arrays can summon 3,000 sacrifice dragons to accompany the divine weapons in battle. The power of the 3,000 sacrifice dragons is closely related to the realm of the caster. They absorb the ancient god power of the weapon owner to fight. Of course, only a small amount of ancient god power is needed to burst out with powerful combat power, and they are almost immortal, unless the divine weapon itself suffers a huge injury. The lethality of the 3,000 sacrificial dragons depends on the master's realm and ancient god source power level, but there will not be too much consumption. Zhang Zizai can actually see that around this golden halberd, there are now many small dragons. These small dragons are of various kinds and are wandering around the golden halberd. They have long lost their minds and are now just pure fighting machines. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1007. These are the dragons born in the 3,000 dragon sacrifice array. They used to be top-level gods, but now they have lost all traces of their previous lives and are just part of the 3,000 dragon sacrifice array. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Once Zhang Zizai controls this divine weapon, the stronger Zhang Zizai is, the stronger they will be. If Zhang Zizai can become a God King one day, then they can challenge the God King. But now, this heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd cannot be considered as a God King level. That's because, After suffering a huge trauma, the 3,000 dragon sacrifice array is no longer complete. Zhang Zizai counted carefully and found that there are only about 300 dragons left among the 3,000 dragon sacrifice, and many of them are on the verge of collapse. Time and years are a kind of disaster in themselves, and even the dragons can't hold on. The heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd has been silent for many years. But even so, such a magic weapon is more terrible than all the god-level totem magic weapons, and even stronger than many god-level magic weapons. Even if there are only 300 dragon sacrifices, Zhang Zizai's combat power may be improved to a more terrifying level. The 33 heavens killing god Xianbing is already a magic weapon close to the god level, but this Kangtian sacrifice dragon divine halberd, even with the current incomplete formation, is much stronger than the weapon left by the god of killing. This is also a gift left by the god of war to Zhang Zizai. Maybe one day, you can make it glorious again. That requires that you personally use the Kangtian sacrifice dragon divine halberd to kill the dragon totem ancient god above the god level, so that it can be turned into a sacrificial dragon and integrated into the 3,000 sacrifice dragon divine formation. When the number is 3,000, it can return to the god level. Invisibly, the voice of the god of war sounded in Zhang Zizai's mind. After he finished speaking, the voice disappeared completely. This was also left by him in advance. After he finished speaking, it no longer existed. Personally use this heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd to kill the ancient dragon totem gods above the god lord level. Now there are still 2,700 left, but if I kill people randomly in order to make it return to the god king level, then wouldn't I be a murderous devil, going against my conscience? This kind of thing must not be done. Zhang Zizai felt that the former god king level magic weapon must only be thought of, and such a thing could not be done at all. If he did it, he would probably be hunted down by the entire Supreme Dragon clan, and then even if he had a complete god king level magic weapon, it would be useless. Even so, the heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd with 300 sacrificial dragons was enough for him to crush almost all his peers in terms of weapons. Those 300 sacrificial dragons were not vegetarians, they were staring at him, full of desire to return to the world of mortals. Every little dragon was fierce and violent, and almost had the same fighting will as the god king of war. Each of them was a fighting maniac. This was the mission and power given to them by the 3,000 sacrifice dragon array. They were born to fight. Imagine, in the battle, 300 sacrificial dragons surround you, just like your clones, and they are immortal. How difficult and scary would you be? You don't have to think about the grand occasion of 3,000 sacrificial dragons, but 300 sacrificial dragons are already within your reach. Zhang Zizai couldn't wait. After accepting the inheritance, he walked forward in the excited and envious eyes of the people. At that moment, the 300 sacrificial dragons took the initiative to make way for it, and even crawled in front of him. This scene clearly means that Zhang Zizai can easily get this heavenly sacrificial dragon divine halberd. If it were someone else, I'm afraid even the top gods would not be able to get so close. I guess even the top gods would desire such a weapon. Or even some gods would desire it, because it only takes killing more than 2,700 gods to restore the glory of this weapon. With admiration and respect for this divine weapon in his heart, Zhang Zizai walked forward and stretched out his hand to hold the heavenly dragon sacrifice halberd. When his palm touched the golden dragon scales, the 3,000 dragons around him almost simultaneously let out a high-pitched dragon roar, and then roamed around Zhang Zizai crazily. Each of these dragons is now like a fighting demon, and Zhang Zizai at this moment is simply the supreme among dragons. Boom! With a loud bang, he pulled out the heavenly dragon sacrifice halberd. In an instant, all the dust and decay on the weapon suddenly dissipated. The once glorious divine weapon has returned to the world. Zhang Zizai can clearly feel the power of this golden divine weapon. This is much stronger than the killing god Xianbing. It feels like holding a violent beast in your hand. The three blades in front of this magic weapon and the tip of the gun at the tail can attack. It is absolutely domineering and fierce, and it is a perfect match with his current immortal will of fighting. Even more terrifying are the 300 sacrificial dragons surrounding him. The 300 sacrificial dragons are roaring, and each of them is a fighting demon. There is no opponent around, otherwise, they can probably directly oppress the enemy mentally. The inheritance should be over. When he got the Kangtian sacrifice dragon god halberd, the last voice of the war god king rang in his ears. Good luck to you. Then, a majestic force pushed him out. He rolled several times in the air. When he stabilized his body, he was already standing outside. He still held the Kangtian sacrifice dragon god halberd in his hand. Now in front of him are the top young people under the age of 40 of the Bright Dragon clan. Feeling some hostility, the 300 sacrificial dragons became very ferocious. They all surrounded Zhang Zizai, growling in low voices and bursting out with a very strong fighting will, which frightened many teenagers for a while. Zhang Zizai was not a person who liked to show off. He quickly let the 300 dragon sacrifices return to the weapons, and then he took back the heavenly sacrifice dragon divine halberd, and also restrained the immortal will of war that erupted during the battle. Even so, after he accepted the inheritance, he was very different from before he entered. In terms of temperament, he was more domineering and unparalleled. The eyes of the group of people in front of him looked at him with mixed feelings: shock, envy, jealousy, confusion, helplessness, and hatred. If I am not mistaken, that is the heavenly sacrifice dragon divine halberd. That is a divine weapon of the God King level. One of the most terrifying God King weapons recorded in history. How could the ancestors of our Bright Dragon clan pass on such an important thing to the people of the small god realm? He may not have a sense of belonging to our Bright Dragon clan. Why is all this happening? Many people ask such questions in despair. This has become a demon in many people's hearts, and they can't figure it out at all. The only ones who are really happy for Zhang Zizai are Lu Dingxing and the other three. No matter how much other people respected Zhang Zizai before, they must be feeling bad now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1008. For example, Guyaokan, Xuanhuan, and others must have red eyes now, completely unbelievable, or even unable to accept it at all. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Zhang Zizai didn't care what they were thinking at all. Now that he came out and became such a focus, he still wanted to pay a little attention to Bai Mu's feelings. So at the first moment, he came to Bai Mu and said, "Brother Bai, I'm really sorry about the inheritance. I don't quite understand the choice of the War God King." Bai Mu has maintained such a calm expression for a long time. He shook his head and said, "You don't need to say more. In fact, I can feel it. You just did what you should do. You don't need to apologize to me." It couldn't be better for him to think this way. This is indeed the choice of the War God King. Even if Zhang Zizai does not exist, he will not be inherited just because he has the Warshan art. The dragon's yin summoning at the beginning is summoning Zhang Zizai. After Bai Mu finished speaking, he still couldn't help but ask, "I'm very curious, is that really the heaven sacrifice dragon divine halberd? Can you control a God King level weapon?" Indeed, it is, but it is broken for some reason. Now it is probably equivalent to a god level weapon. There are only 300 sacrificial dragons left, Zhang Zizai said honestly. That's pretty good. Besides, there might be a chance of recovery. The elders might know, Bai Mu said. Maybe. But it's definitely not easy. Zhang Zizai actually knew how to recover him, but he didn't want to say it because it would require him to kill 2,700 divine kings himself. How could this be possible? And it also needs to be a dragon totem. The master of the dragon sacrifice god realm is the supreme dragon clan. How can he kill his own people? Moreover, he can't defeat the divine lord. After saying this, they were silent for a while. Congratulations to you. With this good fortune, and you are not bad yourself, it can be said that you have reached the sky in one step. I guess the news has spread out now, and I am afraid that the entire Bright Dragon clan will make you a sensation. In the future, you will also. He is considered an influential figure in our Guangming Dragon clan, Bai Mu said with a smile. It's good luck, but after all, I'm still weak and not worth mentioning. The road ahead is long, so just take your time, Zhang Zizi said in a low-key tone. Now is the most taboo time to be high profile. After all, what he got is very enviable. If he is too high profile, it will annoy many people. Be neither arrogant nor impetuous, the future is bright. Bai Mu smiled. Many people are listening to their conversation. Under this premise, Bai Mu actually has such a big heart, which makes many people admire him. Anyway, if others assume that they are Bai Mu, they will definitely not be able to calm down with Zhang Zizai at this time. Talking. All this is over. If you stay here, you can only envy Zhang Zizai, so many people left in despair. Seeing a person from a small divine realm receive such a blessing makes one feel uncomfortable. There must be more people cursing. They can't scold the king of war gods, they can only scold Zhang Zizai. But things like inheritance have been passed down and no one else can take it away. The most they can do is kill Zhang Zizai. What he can't get, no one can get it. However, the elders will definitely not allow this, because it is a blasphemy against the war god king and a waste of genius. The others left first. Bai Mu and Zhang Zizi chatted for a while, and then asked, "You are so talented, do you want to go with me next? I have a lot of respect for the king of war gods, and I want to get to know you a little bit. If you have such a good fortune, you can tell me what cultivation resources you need in the future. I estimate that after this trip to Dragon Tomb is over, you will be absorbed into Guangming Dragon City. When the time comes, you can come to me directly." It sounded like he regarded Zhang Zizai as a friend. However, there should be some restraint around him, and Long Yan and the others must not be used to it. After thinking about it, Zhang Zizai still smiled and said, "Forget it, the four of us are of low strength and cannot keep up with your schedule. Following you will only drag you down. You should have other goals in Dragon Tomb. We'd better just hang out on our own. If I delay you, I will feel even more regretful." This was Bai Mu's second invitation. He probably really wanted Zhang Zizai to follow him, but Zhang Zizai's reason for refusing sounded sincere. At least to outsiders it wouldn't sound like there was any problem. Let them explore by themselves, no one dares to touch them now anyway, Bai Yu said softly. That's okay. In that case, you should be a little more careful, lest some people are too jealous and take the opportunity to bully you, Bai Mu said. Bai Mu, how can anyone have such courage? Haha, Hua Xiantian said next to him. Bai Mu smiled slightly and didn't say much. Zhang Zizai still had a lot to digest, so he quickly said goodbye to Bai Mu and the others. As everyone watched, the four of them left here and disappeared into the light. Bai Mu watched them leave and stood there for a long time. "Xiaomu, you still have to treat it with a normal mind," Bai Yu said softly. Oh, Bai Mu nodded, turned around and left. The moment he lowered his head, his eyes turned red. On the road of light, the four of them quickly left. "What was going on outside before I came out?" Zhang Zizai asked Xuanhuan. Long Yan spoke slowly, and Lu Dingxing stuttered even more. He could only ask Xuanhuan. "It's almost as you imagined. I took a look and almost everyone was yelling and cursing. They couldn't understand and didn't dare to scold the king of war gods. They can only scold you," Xuanhuan said. "Where are Bai Mu and the others?" This chapter is not finished yet, Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. When he first came back, his face was very gloomy. He must have resented you, but I think he should be adjusting. You know what he said later. I guess this person's mentality is indeed good and he has accepted it. After realizing the fact, he still wants you to work for him, Xuanhuan said. I see, otherwise Lu Dingxing said. Why not? Zhang Zizai asked. In the end, he still had murderous intentions, but he just couldn't control it, Lu Dingxing said. Then do you think, if there is a way in the future, he will get close to me or destroy me? Zhang Zizai asked. Destruction, Lu Dingxing said. No, I think this person is pretty good, Xuanhuan said. You are too young, child. Zhang Zizai smiled, looked ahead and said, no matter what, just wait and see what happens. I owe him a favor. He has no ill intentions towards me, so I will return the favor. So-called it's not impossible to work for him, but if he has a bad mentality, I will definitely stay with him until the end. His next step is to completely control the heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd, and also to practice a new god-level battle technique. In the future, his strength and combat effectiveness will explode. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1009. The whole process of the War God King's inheritance can be said to have made Zhang Zizai stand out in front of the talented young people of the Bright Dragon clan. This time's good fortune is completely worth it for him. Zhang Zizai needs a long time to digest the inheritance of the War God King alone. In fact, it is difficult for Lu Dingxing and Xuanhuan to get anything here, because the inheritance of the Supreme Dragon clan's God King will obviously not choose them, which is also the reason why the Bright Dragon tomb basically does not allow dragon servants to come in. Of course, practicing in the Bright Dragon tomb, the vast divine spirit is also of great benefit to them. After Zhang Zizai left the War God King Dragon tomb, he found a relatively stable place in the Bright Dragon tomb. He needed to practice quietly and think about the new god-level battle tactics and the heaven sacrifice dragon god halberd. The three of them also need to practice for a period of time. Of course, after all, he was just practicing the battle tactics and getting familiar with the heavenly dragon sacrifice halberd, so he didn't particularly need to stay in one place. After all, he only had 1 year in the Bright Dragon tomb. If there was a chance, it would definitely be more cost-effective to explore more. The next time he came in, it would be after he was 40 years old, and I don't know when it would be. First of all, in terms of the heavenly dragon sacrifice halberd, he could already fully control this divine weapon, especially the use of the 3000 dragon sacrifice array, which was actually the same as the 100 Ghosts Night Parade array, and only needed to infuse the ancient god source power. However, after all, it was a former God King level totem divine weapon, and its totem patterns were much more complicated, which was related to the control of each sacrificial dragon, which was indeed more complicated. Fortunately, Zhang Zizai had accepted the inheritance of the God King of War and was the inheritor of the heavenly dragon sacrifice halberd appointed by the God King of War, so it was possible to master it. Otherwise, others might not be able to understand it, even if they were gods. This divine weapon needed to be used more, so Zhang Zizai spent some time every day to perform it. The power of his totem in the boundless time and space can also be used with this weapon to achieve the same effect as the 33 heavens killing god Xianbing. With such a weapon, Zhang Zizai probably won't need the Ghost Dance Demon Sword and the killing god Xianbing. Of course, he needs a brand new battle tactic to use with the Kangtian Sacrifice Dragon God Halberd. He doesn't need to worry at all, because the God King Zhantian has tailored it for him. In the inheritance, Zhang Zizai was directly given 2 battle tactics. These 2 battle tactics were the former signatures of the God King Zhantian. Although they are only god-level battle tactics, they are terrible and very suitable for Zhang Zizai now. If it weren't for the inheritance of the God King Zhantian to integrate into the soul and strengthen the soul, It would be almost impossible for Zhang Zizhe to comprehend the god-level battle tactics at this time. This is the benefit of this top-level inheritance. Lu Dingxin was also able to learn a lot of magic skills at a very fast speed because he inherited a lot of inheritance. These two battle tactics are a body method and a seal method. This body technique was actually decomposed and evolved from the 3000 Dragon Sacrificial Divine Formation, and was created by Zhan Tianshenlong himself. If Zhang Zizhe lost the Heavenly Dragon Sacrificial Divine Halberd, he would no longer be able to perform this body technique. But as long as he had this Totem Divine Weapon, this body technique was definitely more incredible than countless Divine Monarch level body techniques. This body technique was called Sacrificial Dragon Shining. The principle of this body technique was very simple. Now that the remaining 300 dragon sacrifices were dispersed, Zhang Zizhe's original body could swap positions with any dragon sacrifice at any time. This meant that he had 300 clones, 300 positions, and any clone could become his original body at any time. This body technique seemed simple, but in fact, as long as it changed quickly, Zhang Zizhe could be everywhere, constantly dodge attacks, and make his figure unpredictable, so that the enemy could not grasp his position at all, and even if he did not see it, he might be defeated by Zhang Zizhe. Sacrificial Dragon Shining was everywhere. As long as it is not a method that can limit a large range and make all his dragon sacrifices have nowhere to escape, it is almost difficult to catch him. This body technique relies on the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd to practice. When Zhang Zizhe was familiar with this Totem Divine Weapon, he began to hone it through interaction and connection with the dragon sacrifices. After becoming familiar with it, the body technique is also a means of attack. 3000 dragon sacrifices, swallowing the world. Now even if there are only 300 left, flying all over the sky, it is scary enough. Familiar with the Heavenly Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd and practicing this Sacrifice Dragon Shine, in fact, it is not too difficult after all. There is a heritage guide. When both are familiar, it will be a natural thing. The more difficult one is the god-level battle tactics that Zhang Zizhe is currently practicing. This domineering, powerful, and lethal battle tactic is called Five Emperors Dragon Seal. This is an offensive battle tactic created by the god of war for the Holy Dragon. It is not his original creation, but after his enrichment and improvement, it can burst out the power of the 5 bloodlines of the dragon. This is a seal method, which originated from palm method, but is more domineering than palm method, with a strong suppressive force, which is a wake-up call for the enemy. The 5 Emperors Dragon Seal is a 5-stroke dragon seal, which can be performed with one hand. With the Heaven Sacrifice Dragon Divine Halberd and the 300 sacrificial dragons accompanying the dragon seal, the lethality is absolutely amazing. The 5 Emperors Dragon Seal is 5 means, namely, Burning Sky Fire Dragon Seal, Covering Sky Thunder Dragon Seal, Sky Supporting Azure Dragon Seal, Covering Sky Blue Dragon Seal and Shocking Sky Yellow Dragon Seal. They are the 5 holy dragon powers of fire, thunder, green wood, water flow, and land. The 5 Emperors Dragon Seals are not strong or weak, but they can be superimposed and performed. After Zhang Zizhe pondered for a few days, he found that it was not very difficult to successfully practice the 5 Emperors Dragon Seals separately, but it was quite difficult to superimpose and perform them to enhance the power. And superposition is the core of this god-level battle tactics. Just using any one of the 5 Emperors Dragon Seals can only be regarded as understanding the basics, and its power is only the power of an ordinary god-level battle tactic, but if it is superimposed, the degree of superposition is different, and the power is different. The highest superposition can make the 5 Emperors Dragon Seal the most terrifying god-level battle tactic. For example, the 5 Emperors Dragon Seals can be superimposed on each other, such as the Burning Sky Fire Dragon Seal and the Covering Sky Thunder Dragon Seal, which can be superimposed together to form a double dragon seal and explode at the same time. Any two combinations have different superposition powers and can be used to target different enemies. Any three can also be superimposed, and the power is naturally more terrifying. The lethality of the triple dragon seal is several times that of the double. Any four can of course also be superimposed, and the power is more terrifying than the triple dragon seal, and of course the difficulty is several times more difficult. The most difficult thing is definitely to stack all the 5 dragon seals. The power of the 5 dragon seals is unimaginable. Anyway, Zhang Zizhe doesn't need to think too much. He estimates that he must at least cultivate to the level of a god to stack all the 5 dragon seals. /U003C, -2018-09-25 10 hours 10 minutes and 28 seconds /U003E. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1010. That is probably still far away, so his current goal is to learn the 5 Emperor's dragon seals respectively, and then become familiar with the dragon sacrifice shrine and control the heaven sacrifice dragon divine halberd. In this way, every day is busy and fulfilling, his own abilities are constantly being strengthened, and the speed of progress is definitely faster than ordinary people. Zhang Zizhe also has to thank Bai Mu, because Bai Mu gave Longyan an identity. Now Longyan doesn't have to stay in the evolutionary world. Zhang Zizhe hopes that she can take root in the dragon sacrifice god realm. Unfortunately, Lingdang and the others are still in the evolutionary world, so Zhang Zizhe still has to find a way to have more capital. When we were in the small god realm, I could have given them identities and let them come out, but I didn't expect to come directly to the dragon sacrifice god realm. Sooner or later the sacrifice dragon god realm will come, so I still have to establish my own foundation here as soon as possible so that they can stay here. I just don't know where she is in this vast dragon sacrifice god realm. When I leave the bright dragon tomb this time, I might be able to find her, or I can use the same method as the small god realm to make myself famous. Let her come to you. This guy is too confident. He can find her just by giving her name. The dragon sacrifice divine realm is so big, and it is still the world of the supreme dragon tribe. How can anyone know her? Zhang Zizhe really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If she had left more information at that time, he might have been able to do it faster. Now he and Lingdang are missing each other terribly. Who knows where that person will be? He regarded these thoughts as motivation for cultivation. With the inheritance of the War God King, he was even more powerful. Now everyone knew that Longyan had the potential of a god, but who knew that he also had the potential of a god? Moreover, he has always been advancing by leaps and bounds. He always seems to be the least talented, but he is always at the forefront, making it difficult for Lu Dingxing and others to catch up. Time passes day by day in the bright dragon tomb. In addition to the rare dragon tomb inheritance, some stone tablets will occasionally appear, teaching some skills and tactics, and the light dragon fountain will appear to strengthen the divine body. Everyone's opportunities are different, and Zhang Zizhe also I don't know how many blessings others have received in this bright dragon tomb. Anyway, because their activities are not very extensive, the biggest gains so far are from Zhang Zizhe. The others have at most obtained a lot of dragon spring of light, and then Xuanhuan has mastered a sword fighting technique in a stone tablet, named it as Taibei Tage sword. It possesses 2 amazing sword moves. Its lethality is astonishing, and its reputation is quite coquettish. The 2 sword skills are respectively named, Sword Chi across 30,000 miles, and 1 sword light cold 19 states. He said that the power of these swords was close to the god level, and he could use the Wang Chuan sword to turn it into a god level battle technique and use it. Zhang Zizhe saw it and found that it was indeed very good. Xuanhuan's gains here are also quite good. As for Lu Dingxing, he is really not interested in the inheritance here because he cannot practice many of his own inheritances. Zhang Zizhe discovered that after becoming a god, time passed much faster. Unconsciously, it seemed that another 4 months had passed. He was already 20 years old. It was estimated that it would not be long before the training of Guangming Dragon Tomb. It will end, they will leave here, and people over 40 years old and under 100 years old will come in. During this period of time, there were no other blessings, and Zhang Zizai spent all his time on the blessings he had obtained before. First, he encountered another kind of divine calamity, called Bei Tian Han Shui. Its scope and degree were similar to those of light clouds, thunder and lightning, and burning sky-white flames. The key was to add 3 superpositions to cultivate the holy dragon celestial body. The difficulty increased sharply again, and it was the same this time. It took a life and death effort to persevere. The good thing is that the divine body has been strengthened again. Although Lu Dingxing's Taishu Chaos Demon God scripture is constantly making breakthroughs, it is still suppressed by Zhang Zizai in the physical body. Second, the Dragon Sacrifice Shine and the Heaven Sacrifice Dragon Divine Halberd are basically familiar and can be used together. Third, for the time being, each of the 5 Emperor's dragon seals has been successfully cultivated. He tried superimposing it, but found it very difficult. He is still trying to figure it out for the time being. Of course, he has already tried, just the separate 5 Emperor's dragon seals, combined with the sky. The power of the Dragon Sacrifice Divine Halberd is already quite terrifying. After he came out of the inheritance of the War God King, he had a premonition that his cultivation level would increase dramatically, and his current prediction was similar to his. A month ago, he continued to use the dragon whale swallowing sea technique, which allowed him to break through to the 4th level of the ancient god realm. By now, he has been successfully breaking through for a month, and his realm has long been stable, and he has begun to hit the 5th level of the ancient god realm. His current rate of progress is terrifying even in the dragon sacrifice god realm. It's a pity that not many people really notice his progress in this area. In the eyes of most people, he was just a lucky man who received the inheritance from the War God King. Zhang Zizai felt that she was powerful enough, but the 3 guys around her were pretty good. First of all, Long Yan, she was almost cheating now. When Zhang Zizai broke through, she even reached the ancient god realm the next day. Triple. The next month was the breakthrough time for Lu Dingxing and Xuanhuan, and they both reached the 4th level of ancient god. Led by Zhang Zizai, their cultivation level is almost chasing each other. Although their starting point is relatively low, in fact, with this pursuit speed, they will catch up with Baimu of the same age sooner or later. Of course, each breakthrough now takes longer than before. Now it is the 4th level. The time it takes to go from the 4th level to the 9th level will definitely increase gradually. Baimu can reach this level at the age of 20, which shows that when he was at the 3rd or 4th level of ancient god, his progress was not bad. Anyway, Zhang Zizai currently has no advantage in realm, but he is very fast in realm improvement, but Lu Dingxing and the others are about the same as him. His real strength lies in the mystery of his totem and the richness of his means, especially the inheritance of the god of war god that he recently obtained. Despite this, he did not get proud, but continued to move forward steadily. After entering the Light Dragon Tomb, we have already improved 2 realms. After we go out, it may attract some attention, Xuanhuan said. I got the inheritance of the god of war god. People outside should know about it. There may be a big battle, Zhang Zizai said. Are you afraid? Lu Dingxing asked with a smile. There is the god of heavenly dragon, what are you afraid of? Zhang Zizai said with a smile. Now there are less than 2 months left. The progress in 2 months is limited. They plan to hang around in the Light Dragon Tomb next, and maybe they can get other gains. The most here is the Dragon Spring of Light, but after a long time, there is almost no Dragon Spring of Light that has not been absorbed. On this day, they were wandering in this world of light, and Long Yan suddenly said, "Come this way." Is there something? Zhang Zizai knew that she must have a special feeling, so she would speak. Usually she rarely spoke, and was so quiet that she seemed to be non-existent. Zhang Zizai usually talked to her more. Yes. Let's go. /U003C, -colon 2018-09-25 10 hours 10 minutes and 30 seconds /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1011. They followed Longyan and changed direction, heading to the east. As they walked, Zhang Zizai smelled some blood in the air. Did someone kill someone? Zhang Zizai asked. This bloody smell was quite strong, and it would only appear when many people died. No. Longyan shook her head slightly. She seemed quite interested. She didn't like fighting, and she would not be interested in approaching a real battlefield. The bloody smell gradually became stronger, and there were some bloodstains in the light ahead. Zhang Zizai vaguely saw that there seemed to be a blood pool ahead. They approached quietly and found that it was indeed a blood pool 10 times larger than the Dragon Spring of Light, but the overall style was very similar to the Dragon Spring of Light. It seems to be a Dragon Spring of Light. I heard that the Dragon Spring of Light was made of the blood of the God King, but it was obviously diluted a lot, and the blood color could not be seen. But this blood pool may be a very concentrated Dragon Spring of Light, Longyan said softly. It is true that the aura is the same as the Dragon Spring of Light, it is the same thing, but no matter the volume or concentration, it is much more than the Dragon Spring of Light, Zhang Zizai said. That should be a good thing, Xuanhuan said. And, it is, no one has touched it. Lu Dingxing's eyes also lit up. They believed in their own judgment, so they rushed up directly. After getting close, they could almost conclude that this was the Dragon Spring of Light with a super high concentration. Maybe if they could absorb the essence here, it would be better than hundreds of Dragon Springs of Light. This is definitely a treasure. It can only mean that you are really lucky to be able to find it. Let's call it, Dragon Spring of Blood. Zhang Zizai was not happy for long, but he found out that there was already someone in the Dragon Spring of Blood. This person should have just gone down not long ago and didn't absorb much at all. He was still in excitement and was swimming in the Dragon Spring of Blood. If I absorb all of this Dragon Spring, I'm afraid that none of the ancient gods of the entire Supreme Dragon clan will be as strong as me. My good fortune has finally arrived. My ancestors opened my eyes and let me find this place. Thank you, ancestors. This man was so excited that he burst into tears. He had just jumped in and was still in ecstasy. After the joy, he just started to absorb the essence. In the first moment, he felt that everything here was very different from the Dragon Spring of Light. It's really amazing, this kind of strengthening momentum. His voice trembled. Such good fortune made him cry with joy. At this moment, there was movement above. His eyes trembled and he raised his head. As long as there was movement, it meant that the thing he least wanted to happen had happened. After him, someone came here. When he raised his head, the people above saw him and their faces were also stunned. It's you. It's you. Zhang Zizai, and he said it at the same time. After that, Zhang Zizai smiled, but he was furious. His face was so gloomy that blood was about to drip out, just the same color as the blood dragon spring below. Zhang Zizai smiled and said, I met you again. It seems that we are quite predestined. The person in the blood dragon spring had a face as pale as pig liver. He stood up straight, squinted at Zhang Zizai, and said, everything has the principle of first come first served. I discovered this place first, and it definitely belongs to me. You have already inherited the War God King, and you have gained much more than me. Zhang Zizai, don't be greedy. It will only destroy yourself. He was Xuanhuan. The son of the God King of the Bright Dragon Society, he had a very high status, higher than Hua Xiantian, and was not very old. It was just that his talent was not as amazing as Bai Mu, but he was also a genius of the Bright Dragon clan. He was not afraid of Zhang Zizai, but he was defeated by them last time, so he still had some shadows. Facing this person's threat, Zhang Zizai said, "Don't joke. Although I have inherited the legacy, who would dislike having too much good fortune? My 3 friends have gained nothing. Please come out now. Otherwise, I will beat you up." He was not polite. After Xuanhuan heard it, his dream was challenged, and he was naturally unwilling to accept it. Such a treasure was enough to make him crazy, so he gritted his teeth and said, "Last time I let you join forces to defeat me, that was because I didn't pay attention and underestimated you. I used many methods. If you still don't know how to live or die this time, don't blame me for being cruel. Don't talk so much nonsense." Zhang Zizai certainly knew that he had to seize the good things when he had them, otherwise it would be more troublesome if others came. He didn't plan to talk too much nonsense with Xuanhuan. After saying this, the enviable Kangtian sacrifice dragon divine halberd appeared in his hand. In an instant, the 300 sacrificial dragons had surrounded Zhang Zizai and surrounded him like a dragon king. "The inheritor of the war god king actually besieged me, haha," Xuanhuan rushed out. Being besieged in this blood pool would definitely be passive, so he came out in advance. He knew in his heart that if he didn't use all his strength to face someone like Zhang Zizai, he couldn't defend the blood dragon spring. His Guanjiao Tianlongji was originally domineering and brilliant, but in front of the Kangtian Zhilong Shenji, it was just like a child's toy at this time. "Who said we are going to besiege you?" Zhang Zizai smiled. "The opponent is a god-level totem, Guanjunchengai Tianlong Totem, which has the power of the domain, and its god source level will be relatively high. Overall, it is a genius-level combat power. The last siege was indeed a fluke to defeat him. In the realm of the 6th level of the ancient god, he is considered to be the top. If the opponent only has a god-level totem, then he can deal with the 7th level of the ancient god realm. But now, Zhang Zizai has reached the 4th level of the ancient god realm. Now surrounded by 300 sacrificial dragons, in the first collision, Zhang Zizai looks much more domineering than him. Arrogant, Xuanhuan heard that he meant to fight him alone and completely relaxed. He has never been afraid of this. At the first moment, he has already taken action. Last time his totem was suppressed because of Long Yan. This time without Long Yan, his holy sea of light and flame completely erupted, instantly forming a pale flame that completely engulfed Zhang Zizai. But in the next moment, he was stunned to find that in the holy sea of light and flame, Zhang Zizai was unharmed. The flames that he was very confident in burned on his divine body, but he did not react at all. This is actually the power of the holy dragon celestial body. After Zhang Zizai's divine body has endured the test of the burning sky white flame, the lethality of this field is negligible to him. No matter how hard it is for Xuanhuan to accept it, he must endure Zhang Zizai's attack at this time. The immortal war heaven will /U003C -2018-09-25 10 hours 10 minutes and 31 seconds /U003E. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1012. Zhang Zizai was just trying to see what kind of oppression this yearning will from the inheritance would have on the enemy. When his immortal will of war came, in Huazhongai Yuan's eyes, his opponent completely changed. In that instant, Xuanhuan found with some despair that Zhang Zizai in his eyes looked as high and mighty as the god. His spiritual will directly impacted, forming a kind of crushing, feeling like an elder, making it difficult for him to raise his head. His own fighting will and courage dissipated a lot, and he couldn't help but bow his head. From his reaction, Zhang Zizai could feel the lethality of the immortal will of war. However, this was nothing. After all, this kind of suppression would only work in battle. So in the next moment, 300 sacrificial dragons suddenly attacked crazily. Those sacrificial dragons with violent fighting wills had not fought for countless years. They rushed out ferociously and violently, roaring and fighting. Dragon mouths, dragon teeth, dragon claws and dragon tails were all their weapons of attack. Sacrificial dragons shine. Zhang Zizai suddenly appeared in front of Xuanhuan, and one of the dragons just now replaced his position. He suddenly chopped down the heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd in his hand, and at the same time all the dragons rushed down. In the gathering of the ancient god source power, the heavenly dragon sacrifice divine halberd chopped down. Hua Zhongyuan was a little crazy. He was suppressed and collapsed. This feeling of despair filled his chest. He could only use the ancient god source power in his body, which was the only place where he surpassed Zhang Zizai, to condense in the Guanjiao Tianlong halberd to resist and perform the Guanghe Yaoshiju. However, all his rivers of light were torn apart by Zhang Zizai in the first time, and his defense almost ceased to exist. The heavenly dragon sacrificed divine halberd directly chopped on his Guanjiao Tianlong halberd. With a bang, his Guanjiao Tianlong halberd hit him. He spit out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground fiercely. He was dizzy for a while. When he wanted to get up, he found that all 300 dragon sacrifices were entangled with him, and they were waving their claws and teeth, as if they were going to eat him. Hua Zhongyuan was defeated. It seemed that Zhang Zizai defeated him easily. Although he was a genius of the 6th level of the ancient god realm and a figure of the bright dragon clan, he had almost no power to fight back in front of Zhang Zizai. This feeling, how desperate! Especially after losing the blood dragon spring. Impossible. You didn't have the strength 4 months ago, Hua Zhongyuan said miserably. So, it was the god King Zhantian who created me. You need to recognize the reality. You are not my opponent now, so stay here honestly. I can't control them. If you move randomly and let them eat your arms or heads, I will not be responsible, Zhang Zizai said in a deep voice. You scare me, Hua Zhongyuan said unwillingly. What's the point of scare you, Zhang Zizai asked. Do you know who my parents are, Hua Zhongyuan said angrily. I don't know him. You can't rely on your parents in the bright dragon tomb, Zhang Zizai said. But you will get out sooner or later. You have offended me so much, you will definitely. Stop talking nonsense. You can't scare me. If you talk again, I will eat your tongue first. As soon as Zhang Zizai finished speaking, all the dragon sacrifices were very excited, staring at his mouth, waiting for Zhang Zizai's order. This made Hua Zhongyuan tremble directly and dared not speak again. He could only look at Zhang Zizai with hatred, but his eyes were full of powerlessness. Everything was so helpless. He could only watch. Zhang Zizai entered the blood dragon spring with the 4 of them. He moved slightly, but the dragon sacrifices stared at him. He could only lower his head, clenched his fists, and roared in anger. I never thought that I would be bullied to this extent by the people of the small divine realm. I never thought that there would be such a group of people. What capital do they have to do this? He could only see that this group of people had surpassed himself, which made him doubt his own talent. Time passed, and he dared not look up, because it was hard for him to bear that the blood dragon spring that had just made him so excited was completely absorbed by this group of people. Their talents were good in themselves, and after absorbing the blood dragon spring, the 4 of them must be stronger. In fact, it was true. The effect of this blood dragon spring was so good that Zhang Zizai felt that after this strengthening, it might be much better to practice the holy dragon celestial body. He had not absorbed much yet. The most important part was to let Longyan and Suqinyu absorb it, because the 2 of them were a little weak in this aspect. This time the absorption was successful, and they were already very strong in the divine body. The effect of practicing the method of forging the divine body would definitely be better. Should I find you a better practice method and body training method? Zhang Zizai asked Longyan. No, I haven't, Longyan said softly. Where did it come from? Zhang Zizai asked curiously. After becoming a god, it naturally appeared in my mind. I just used this blood of the God King to practice the body refining battle tactics, and it has some effect. What's it called? Zhang Zizai found that she was more amazing than himself. After becoming a god, a practice method appeared directly in her blood. Maybe it was inherited from her ancestors or parents. It's called the Killing Ancestral Dragon Sutra, she said softly. Is it powerful? It seems to be quite powerful. Killing Ancestral Dragon Sutra, Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. He remembered that what he practiced was called the Yuanqi Shenlong Sutra. Could there be any connection between the two? Yes, the body is called Blood Spirit Ancestral Dragon Body. If you practice well, it is also very powerful. You can practice to the realm of gods, Longyan said. Zhang Zizai looked at her with a completely different look. I dare to conclude that there must be gods in your ancestors, or your parents are gods, Zhang Zizai said. How is it possible? They are just ordinary people. As for my situation, I don't understand it myself. Don't think so. I thought my parents were ordinary people. Look, they are not strange. I can't see them until now. As long as you practice, maybe you can meet them one day, Zhang Zizai said. They, huh? Longyan bit her red lips. She struggled a little. That period of time was too uncomfortable. If there really was such a day, should she be happy? She didn't dare to imagine too much. Just go down and wait and see. If there is anything, you can talk to me, Zhang Zizai smiled. Yeah. At this time, the blood dragon spring had been absorbed, so Zhang Zizai jumped out of the blood pool with them. Now the blood pool has turned white. Seeing that they have obtained everything, Xuanhuan is even more tearful and can only roar in his heart. Zhang Zizai withdrew the dragon sacrifice and was about to leave. Suddenly, the blood pool had a new change. The water in it actually flew up and turned into a river, flowing in one direction. What he didn't know was that at this moment, the light dragon spring of the entire light dragon tomb was flowing towards a center, /U003C, -2018-09-25 10 hours 10 minutes and 32 seconds /U003E.